name is Alicia Parham, first and foremost, and I work for the Agency of Affordable Housing in Small Mountain Towns. And I just wanted to talk to you today about our affordable housing crisis that we have going on. Ski towns like Salida, there's an influx of vacationers during the winter months and even during the fall months when the aspens are changing. In turn, these people who come here to see the aspens, or the people who come here to ski, they aren't just people who visit, they are people who come for extended periods of time, and they also come every season. So in doing this, they were obviously looking for more permanent places, which led to them buying houses. And when they bought the houses, they would buy these houses, and it wouldn't be for long-term rental services. It will only be for short-term rental. So after purchasing the houses, some people bought their vacation homes here in small towns, and some people buy just homes on different streets, and they convert them into Airbnb. Even as early as the 1800s, this town was said to be a town that was going to essentially blossom. And it has. The population has been growing, but not just in terms of people who come here to retire, but also in terms of people who come here and want to start families, or people who already have families and they're just moving to a smaller community. To me, because as a social worker, I feel like it is very important to consider the well-being of everybody in the town. So not just the people who come here and are able to pay the high property taxes and are able to pay the high rent and things like that, but also the people who may not be able to afford the high property taxes and high rent and things like that. So this is important to me because this places all of the locals who are essentially the heart of Salida, Colorado. And on top of, being displaced, a lot of people may also not have access to affordable health care. This past week, we had a widowed 55-year-old woman who has been living in Salida for 25 years. She has raised a family here, and she unfortunately has lost her partner here as well. She, in talking to her about the crisis that are happening as far as housing is concerned in small rural communities, she also had let me know that even on her street alone, there have been multiple instances where people have come and they buy these homes and they turn them into vacation homes. And as she put it, she said this town is slowly turning into a place for visitors, not for permanency. After her wife passed, she suffered different health conditions that led her children to be concerned about her. So because they were concerned about her, her oldest daughter decided that after not being here for upwards of maybe 7 years, that she was gonna move back to help care for her mom and just be there for support. However, as her daughter was doing her research prior to moving down here, she discovered that there are not a lot of long-term rental options available. She also discovered that here in Salida, it is very hard to find places that you can afford just by yourself if you do not have the livable wage. So in order for her daughter to come here and live comfortably, she would have to be making a livable wage of $30+ an hour. However, as mentioned before, she does not have a lot of job opportunities in her field, which is science. So unfortunately, that leaves her with the possible minimum wage of Salida, which is $12.56 an hour. The average rent here in Salida is $970, all the way up to $1,000+ dollars. It's not common for people to come here and just be individuals. A lot of them are with families, or they have families, or they live with their mothers or fathers and things like that. The average household income for Salida is $63,000. I don't know how to read. So in order for her daughter to come here and live comfortably, she would have to be making a livable wage of $30+ an hour. However, as mentioned before, she does not have a lot of job opportunities in her field, which is science. So unfortunately that leaves her with the possible minimum wage of Salida, which is $12.56 an hour. The average rent here in Salida is $970 all the way up to $1,000+ it's not common for people to come here and just be individuals. A lot of them are with families, or they have families, or they live with their mothers or fathers and things like that. The average household income here in Salida, Colorado is $63,024. The poverty rate is at 13.05%. The value of the houses are currently at $328,200. And out of the stats that I just listed, 86% of the households are married and they own their homes. And as I mentioned before, the minimum wage here in Salida is $12.56. There are a few causes to the affordable housing crisis in small ski towns. The first one would be the people who come here after they retire. The second would be people who move from big cities like LA, NYC, and things like that. And then the last factor, which has contributed a lot to the reason behind why a lot of states have raised their property taxes and their rent is going up for different apartments, is because of COVID-19. And the consequences of everything that I just listed before has been obviously the raise in rent and the raise in property taxes. And if this problem is not addressed soon, what could end up happening is that there are not people here who are in the working class. This could easily become an area where there are nothing but upper class people working, even if they aren't working, vacationing, but they basically have the means to pay whatever the taxes or the rent may rise to. This community as a whole would no longer be affordable. For the people who can't afford to stay or leave, they would then become homeless, which would then kind of create more of and the county is taking action. But if the county did not take action, then there's a possibility that this town would no longer be affordable, and it would only be a town for people who can pay the high property taxes, who can pay the high rents. And in doing so, this town would no longer be affordable, which means that the people who are the heart of this town, the people who work at the local gas stations, the local grocery stores, and even the thrift stores, they would end up being displaced, because what would end up happening is that they will either be forced to stay and figure out a way to make ends meet, or they'll be forced to leave, which then brings up the question, if they can't afford the raise in property taxes, how are they going to afford to move to a different state that is affordable? And if they can't get to this other state and they lose their home, they will eventually become homeless, which then would contribute to the homelessness rate in Colorado. Upon talking to my colleagues, we came up with a few different solutions or interventions that could possibly be adopted by the town. The first one would be to build apartment buildings and homes that are especially designed for people of the community, and they're also low income as well. And then for the people who come to ski during ski season, and for those who come to watch the Aspens change, there could be a certain part of town that could be dedicated to those people, so that way they aren't buying up the houses within the community, but they also aren't alienated from the community as well. There's also the talk of building more ski lodges, whether we build those in the community or even if we build them closer to the ski mountains. Two social work interventions that I can think about would be to help people have access to Section 8 or even rental assistance. The second one would be to maybe find other resources that could help with any monetary help that they may need, or things like food stamps, and making sure that they have access to any government programs that assist people who are in low income situations. And this will be done on the macro scale, so that way it is something that can address the whole community. And even if people who are in the community do not need these resources, it could just be something that the community as a whole is aware of, and they would basically be given the ability to access these resources. But in turns, as a county, we could also host like classes on how to access these resources properly and how to fill out the paperwork and different things like that, which I feel like would be more on a micro scale, but and also in helping people find these resources and use these resources, we could also teach them that, you know, every decision you make is about furthering your life. And if this is not a place that is adequate in helping you keep yourself afloat, so to speak, then we could also look into different resources for them personally,